Okay, is the sound there now? Can someone say yes or no? The sound?
Is my sound coming through?
Can anybody hear this composition? Can't hear.
I can hear it.
Okay, you can hear. Hriday Buddhadev says he can hear. Vardhan Bhola says he can hear. Sehajneet Singh says he can hear. Vaibhav says he can hear. Debobrata says now it's okay. So thank you. Okay, sorry about the delay, but too much technology can get you into a situation sometimes. So uh, thank you all for joining me. Welcome back, and sorry for the long gap. I thought I should come back and have a chat with all of you. I'd like to thank you for all your birthday wishes. Means a lot. And as usual, I have Bhajanpreet, a very dear friend of mine, who always comes on and has a chat with me and addresses questions from students on various topics. So, once again, thank you all for joining. It's a great pleasure to interact with you. Let's begin.
Namaskar, Guruji, Pranam, and thank you so
Jitaro,
much
Jitaro.
for coming back online. I think I speak on everyone's behalf that every session with you, we're just waiting for every little drop of wisdom that you share with us. So,
Thanks for
um,
joining. Thanks for taking the time out in that part of the world.
of course, of course. So, thank you also for everyone that's joining in right now. And I just want to give everyone a reminder that this session, typically we've hosted Q&As in the past that were more general. This time we're trying to focus the questions more on the journey of a Tabla student, and
Okay.
especially beginning from a beginner student and continuing forward. So if anyone has any specific questions they'd like for me to pose, then you can drop that in the chat. I'm also following along on the YouTube chat. Also, just want to begin to all of our Sikh audience. Very happy Gurpurab to everyone.
Happy
And
Guru Purab. Happy Guru Purab.
so let's not delay any longer. Everyone's probably excited. So let's begin with a beginner student's journey. Firstly, even before beginning putting hands on the tabla, Guruji, what are some qualities that you look for in a student that the student should have, but also what what role does the family and the environment play?
Well, you said it in your question. Three very important things. One is that he should understand lay. Lay is inside us, around us, everywhere. We know that, but most of many don't really discover it right down to its source. So lay has to be there. Understanding of lay, simple lay has to be there. Someone who's never kept a hand on the tabla, yes, it's a tough ask. So, but it's not impossible. A beginner must have the burning desire, the hunger and thirst to explore, learn, and completely surrender. I mean, these are qualities that any student would have. It's not about beginner, intermediate, advanced, or professional, or whatever. Any student needs to have, if he really wants to learn, must have these qualities. And of course, uh, he should devote the time to practice. He should devote the time to you know try to delve deeper into it as much as he or she can. And I think you mentioned family, about the family. Yes, family support is always an advantage. If the family supports the mother, and if the parents support nurturing this kind of an art or sanskars in a young boy, then I think it gives an added advantage. It's like a catalyst, I would say. It works like a catalyst, and the effort, the commitment that the child puts in, it has multiplying effects. So,
जी,
yeah, I mean, uh, it is important for beginners to work hard in order to discover the technique, to understand the technique, to understand what the lessons given in the beginning are. They need to put in that time, you know, uh, not practicing regularly or not, practicing every now and then really doesn't help. So, because this instrument is one of the finest percussion instruments in the world, which has a profound language, vocabulary, innumerable composition types, so much to learn, so much to explore, that one needs to give adequate time.
जी.
So that's about
बिल्कुल.
it.
Thank you, Guruji. So continuing forward from there, if you do take a beginner student, let's say, can you tell us a little bit about progressively what their trajectory looks like in terms of the talim that you give? Um, where do they begin, and how do you progress forward systematically?
Well, see, it varies from person to person. It depends on the talent, the capacity to grasp, uh, the time that he or she is putting in. So these are variables. But if I have to just generally, speak on an average, if I just say a beginner student comes to learn from me, assuming that he gives adequate time for his practice, he's committed, he loves the instrument, he's in love with the instrument, he's in love with the subject, and he wants to achieve every single day. Assuming this, and therefore I say, what I'm trying to say is these should be constants, not variables.
जी, जी,
So, assuming that this is there, all these qualities are there, I think in the first 3 years, maybe two, but I'm just giving one extra year. In the first 3 years of good talim, good practice, good connect with the guru, I think a student should be ready to be moving on to an intermediate level. So this includes learning the technique, learning the repertoire, learning simple kaidas, learning simple relas, knowing about ek gun, dugun, tigun, chaugun, uh, knowing about various composition types after rela, like simple tukdas, tihais, you know, maybe a simple gat. So it prepares the student to take on the next couple of levels, uh, like probably intermediate or then advanced, and then maybe some of them who are really bright, who are really exceptionally gifted, can then be picked up, or if they are willing to and they want to commit their life to music and tabla, only then can it be, only then can they be considered uh, to be picked up and trained as professionals. But otherwise, more or less, this is the journey.
जी. So you mentioned that in, let's say, on average, in 3 years, you could see a beginner student progressing to intermediate level. And as we know, this vidya is something that is a lifelong journey, right?
Yes.
So how how can a student measure their progress in terms of specific goals and milestones, and how can they keep themselves motivated, and how regularly should they check in to see are they actually moving ahead? Because again, over such a long time span, some students may lose motivation here and there. So how do you keep the students motivated, and what milestones do you look for in your students?
Uh, well, the only way I can motivate them is to make them look forward, is firstly give them satisfaction of achievement. We are referring to beginners, right? Right now.
Ji, ji, ji.
Yeah. So give them satisfaction of achievement. Don't pitch it up to a level where they really struggle to achieve. Pitch it up to a level
Ji.
where they achieve, because that gives satisfaction of achievement. As I said, it's a very difficult instrument, very challenging. Technique is the crux, and if you can't, okay, you may know so many things that you can recite, but if you can't express it through your hands, it's extremely frustrating for a beginner. So give them satisfaction of achievement. They probably should be in touch for the first year and a half, at least every week. Once every week is ideal. Once
Mhm.
every fortnight is good. Once every month, then it becomes a long drawn process. So
Mhm.
once every week, there's good connect. There is a lot you can monitor. There is a lot you can observe. You can avoid bad habits creeping in, because if you give too much time gap, then in the riyaz, especially with so much available on YouTube and everywhere else, they tend to feel
Mhm.
like, oh, let's do a little bit of this, let's do a little bit of that,
Ji.
so and so tabla player, I love this, let me try this. I mean, it's natural for a human being to get attracted to so many things which are available. So, keeping in touch once a week is ideal, because you can keep him focused. You can keep him motivated through the process of satisfaction of achievement. You can guide them in the direction of ear training in terms of what they should listen to. That gives them even more inspiration, and they get motivated through that. Uh, for students in India, well, they have the atmosphere here. That's a big advantage. For students abroad, most of them don't have the atmosphere, the mahol. They lack the atmosphere. So it's even more necessary for them to be in touch, maybe every week, because,
Mhm.
we have the advantage of technology. I mean, I can never imagine myself learning with Abbaji online. That would have never happened in my time. So if I was traveling and if I felt like reaching out to Abbaji, I could never do it. So
Indeed.
I mean, all the students of today, they have the advantage of technology. Just hook up on Zoom or Skype or FaceTime or whatever, and have a chat with your teacher, with your guru, take inspiration, be in touch, do the lessons, get the lessons in, get the practice in. That itself is a motivational process. So, but the bottom line
Indeed.
is, I would say, satisfaction of achievement. They should be able to achieve. They should be able to gradually under feel that they can do it.
Bilkul, bilkul.
And
I absolutely agree,
and I
Guruji.
would give them, probably I would look at it in giving them monthly goals or bi-monthly goals or quarterly goals or half yearly goals. Maybe for an example, if I have taught a couple of kaidas to a beginner and he's playing them fine, correctly, but the expression needs to come there. Okay, the expression needs to get in there. So uh, I will guide him. I will tell him how he needs to execute it, how he needs to express himself through these phrases. And I tell him that, okay, I give you 1 month's time. I want these two kaidas completely thrashed out, sorted. Okay.
Mhm.
And so that gives him something to look forward to achieve. Now he knows, I'm waiting. At the end of 30 days from now, he's supposed to come back with something. So then he starts
जी,
working on it. So similarly, you can have slightly bigger goals, bi-monthly, tri-monthly, half yearly, and maybe after a year he can have a short performance of maybe whatever 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour, whatever he can achieve. So gradually get
जी,
them into that process of understanding that after learning this knowledge orally through padhan, recitation, that this recitation is eventually expressed through the hands in terms of musical
जी,
expression. So that entire experience of from out goes in, then it is understood, practiced, assimilated, and you begin to feel the sound in your hands, and then it comes out again as your own expression. So that entire cycle has to be, it should be experienced, be it a beginner, be it intermediate, be it advanced.
जी, जी. Thank you, Rudy. Very beautifully explained. I think that's one thing that we all look forward to, that um, you have such a way with words, Gurudi, that you explain these topics so well to all of us. And I know we're limited on time, but there's plenty of questions coming in.
Hmm.
So I'll just leave it with one more question about beginner students.
Okay.
There's a couple questions here that I'll try to combine. So one is if you can give some specific examples of kaida repertoire that beginners should know. And can you explain the importance of kaida as an effective practice technique?
Yes, in fact, I put a short video out on YouTube a few months ago on the first kaida I'd learned from Abbaji, which was dha tete dha tete dha gati na kina dha dha tete tete dha tete dha gati na kina. This was the kaida I learned on my Ganda Bandhan ceremony. And
Mm,
post that, Abbaji just taught me kaidas and kaidas and kaidas to a point where I began to wonder, you know, is that all I'm going to learn? So, but after 15 years of talim, I realized that had he not taught me or put me through or grilled me through a whole bunch of kaidas, that repertoire of kaidas, my hand wouldn't have really gotten really set, and my hand wouldn't have been what we say कायदा जो है वो हाथ तैयार करता है as they say. So
जी, जी,
कायदा prepares the hand to take on other repertoire that is there, uh, that tabla has to offer as a subject. So kaida is that important. Kaida riyaz is very important for the formation of the hand structure, you know, uh, the the capacity of execution, modulation, power, clarity, speed, all of this, all these things are achieved through hard riyaz, you know. So of kaidas. So tit kaidas, dada tit dada tina tata tit dada dina, dha tit da tit dada tit, all Delhi kaida repertoire, you know, and any other kaida repertoire, kaidas of various phrases, trak kaidas, tit kaidas, krdhitit kaidas, you know, dhinigin kaidas, dhadagin kaidas, whatever. I mean, tirkit kaidas. All these have to be covered in order to, get your hand firmly ready to take on repertoire that's coming on later. So that's how important Qaeda
जी,
as a subject is. And intellectuality, the intellectuality of Qaeda in its vistar, that gives that even gives the brain several realizations and several, it exercises the brain. Uh, and that prepares you to,
जी,
to to get into the mode of vistar later on.
जी, जी, बिल्कुल. So perhaps we should move on to some more advanced topics, Guruji. So Um, Once a student has passed this beginner phase, when would you say is the right time to start exploring more advanced subjects such as jatis or tals,
Yeah, I mean,
the concept of upaj, peshkar?
it depends. First, kaidas, a good, you know, a good solid base of kaidas should be taught. Say, for example, maybe 10, 15 kaidas. Then you introduce some relas. In between, you can introduce certain relas. You can also uh, expose them to small bits of language in terms of moras,
Ji,
little bit of language under tihai, right? Mukhras, moras, these are small compositions, and uh, you know gradually as you expose them to kaidas and relas, moras, then tukras. So once they are familiar with a pretty decent language base, then you take them to the deeper intellectual subject of Peshkar and its vistar, and its scope and its depth. And that kind of, gradual approach of introducing small bits of every subject later on can be taken into bigger compositions like Gat Tukras, Chakradars. In between, in the Kaidas itself, you can teach them Tishir Jati Kaidas so that they are exposed to another Jati, uh, not just
ji,
Chatushar Jati Kaidas, right? And as Talim progresses, when they have covered a sizable amount of compositions, you can expose them to Mishir Jati compositions, short ones, small ones. Then get just as you do with Mohras, simple tukras, advanced tukras, gat tukras. It's the same you do with Tishir Jati compositions. Give them small tihais, give them small compositions, and then gradually ease them into the process of understanding more complicated and more complex phrasing in jatis. So that's how I approach teaching students.
ji, ji. Then, Guruji, comes one concept of upaj. So many times we see, and you can tell that the tabla soloist that we're seeing on stage is improvising quite a lot on the stage. Um, how does a student progress to that level? There was a question that someone posted about while doing riyaz of peshkar. Should the calculations be done beforehand, or should we practice, with some guesswork to see if we'll land on the sum?
No,
Um,
uh, don't worry about calculations. Don't worry about guesswork. Just study the peshkar as it is given to you first. Don't do any guesswork. Don't calculate because we are not playing calculations. We are playing poetry. What we are expressing is abstract language and therefore abstract poetry. So concentrate on just learning it from the source as it is given to you first. Memorize it, memorize it to a point where it's sunken into your subconscious. Then you're playing. When you play it correctly, time and again, without a mistake. This is what you need to achieve first. Upaj, that's improvisation, comes after that. Now you've reached a point where probably, as an example, you've reached a point where a student has learned for 7, 8 years. He's covered detailed solo repertoire, advanced compositions. He's advanced into understanding what tabla solo is all about in maybe 3 or 4 different tals. Now, here's when he takes a kaida, he may figure out through the process of talim that he has been given in terms of improvisation of a kaida, he may figure out that, oh, maybe this palta is also a possibility, or maybe you can approach a palta in this particular kaida, maybe this way. It might strike him. So that is where you were talking about improvisation, I think.
जी जी
Yeah,
जी
so that's where the birth of improvisation, himself doing it, the birth of improvisation starts. It happens because he's able to think of paltas by himself. But still, it's not happening on the spot.
जी
So what happens? What does he do? He has to sit. He has to think about that kaida. He has to widen the scope of vistar. Try and widen the scope of vistar himself. If he's probably got eight paltas in his lesson, maybe he adds eight more paltas if he's able to think. He will be able to think by then. I'm talking about 7, 8 years into Talim. He will be able to think about maybe four more paltas, maybe not eight paltas. So he's added four more paltas. Obviously, he runs that by the Guru. The Guru has to guide him in terms of whether he is on the track of poetically improvising it or not, and that he's not out of the chand or out of the language or out of the philosophy of improvising that kaida. So once he verifies all that, he gets the confidence that he is able to make his own variations. And so now he's got about 12 to 14 variations. Now he should by heart those 14 variations. And then when he approaches playing that kaida again, he's got 14 variations at his disposal. And then now when he's playing that kaida, he chooses any eight variations on the spot.
हम्म
You understand what I'm saying? First, this was the
जी जी
gamut of his improvisation. Now the gamut of his improvisation becomes this much. Now he's selecting paltas inside this at free will randomly. So that is a kind of upaj because he's out of 14 paltas, he hasn't decided that he's going to play number two, number three, number four. Maybe he plays two, then he feels like playing four, then he feels like playing seven, then he feels like playing nine, right? So this selection
हम्म
process is still happening on the spot. So it is on the spot improvisation in some way, in a small percentage.
जी जी जी
He may not have completely freed himself uh, in making paltas on the spot, but he's widened his scope. So this is the second stage. And after
हम्म
overcoming this stage, he can, eventually the stage comes where you can launch yourself into on the spot upaj because your brain function of thinking about the vistar of a qaida after having gone through it for years and years and millions of times, eventually you begin to understand how to do it on the spot. You know? So it's a
जी
long process, very long process.
of course and again Guruji beautifully explained very neatly and precisely explained so thank you for that
I can see some questions here.
um जी 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 I'm following along the questions
Yeah.
I guess we might as well address the topic of Riyaz Guruji. I think if I search Riyaz on this page, it's probably the most common question. But to give it some structure, Guruji, if you don't mind, I'll ask you, can you tell us about hardcore sadhana, Riyaz? What this means, as well as at what point will a student be expected to start doing Riyaz at that point? Obviously, a beginner may not be doing that,
Yeah.
but at what point will they start experiencing these
Uh,
things?
see, is this subject, this word sadhana is something that you do every day, plain and simple. It's part of your daily routine. as a very, very intense, uh, you know, intellectual and internal uh, activity, because our music is an inward process, it's not an outward process. It's an
Mm-hmm.
inward journey. So any inward journey that you intensify and you're doing it every day, if you do it every day, it is a sadhana in some way. Some people may do
Gotcha.
it for half an hour, some people may do it for 1 hour, some people may do it for a couple of hours, some people may do it for hours together. But whatever it is, even if you're doing it for 1 hour or half an hour, but every day, then it is some kind of sadhana.
Mm-hmm.
It's like jap sadhana. People do meditation, jap. Some people do it for half an hour, some people do it for 15 minutes, some people do it for hours together. So
Mm-hmm.
doing it every day is important. That the point I'm trying to make is sadhana happens when it happens every day. If it doesn't happen every day, then it is not sadhana. So
Mm-hmm.
in this inward process, if you are you have taken to this instrument, you started loving this instrument, you're in the process of internally hungry and thirsty to discover more, to learn more, to achieve more every single day, then that itself should become a motivational process for you. That's the driving force, and that takes you into eventually takes you into sadhana. Once it takes you into sadhana, which is a daily process, then it starts telling you that you want to increase it. So
Mm-hmm.
then you gradually increase it. And I mean, again, there are different people they do it for a hobby. Some people do it as a very serious hobby. Some people do it as a semi profession. Some people do it as a profession that they did, or their entire life is that. So there are
Mm-hmm.
uh, you know, various ways that people practice music, but all of them can do sadhana. Is what I'm trying to tell you.
Mm-hmm. Ji.
All of them, even a person who's doing it as a hobby, if he does it every day, then it is some kind of sadhana. And if he does that sadhana every day, then he is achieving for sure. How much
Mm.
is uh, is a question that he has to answer every day. How much you want to achieve? That's a question he needs to answer. Someone who does it,
Ji.
he wants to intensify, seriously do it as a more serious hobby, will devote more time. He will achieve more. Others, therefore, as you give more time, are going to achieve more. So sadhana and riyaz go hand in hand. Once once it is a
Mm-hmm.
sadhana inside you, then you are bound to devote time for riyaz. And therefore, when you devote time for riyaz, you're going to achieve. You're going to do better tomorrow than you did today. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes together. Now, how hard you want to do riyaz and how intensely you want to approach it, you know, that's a personal choice.
Of course. As you mentioned, Guruji, every student has their own capacities and their own circumstances, and some of them may be pursuing this as a hobby, others as a professional. Some of us, like here in the West, many of us have full-time jobs aside from uh, pursuing this. So yeah, I have two questions here, which one is, how do you adjust your expectations from different categories of students, Guruji? And the other question is, someone posted in here, can someone that is working a full-time job in the West, could they be expected at some point to reach an advanced level of playing?
Okay, first part of the question, uh, yes. For you guys, it's challenging. Full-time job consumes nearly the whole day. But as I said, it all again, let's go back to where we started. We spoke about how hungry or how thirsty is a person, you know. Uh,
Hmm.
so someone, it's like a hungry lion or a hungry tiger in the forest. He finds his meal, right? You know, the jungle is vast. It's so huge. But a hungry
Hmm.
tiger will, no matter what, he will go and find his meal one day or the other. Maybe no, may not be today, but tomorrow, yes. So someone who's that involved from within and wants to do it is bound to find the time. We have 24 hours in the
Hmm.
day, yeah, and I always tell my students who are learning from me that you have 24 hours in a day. You may be working for 8 hours in the day, right? You still have 16 hours. Then you have, say, daily chores, lunch, dinner, and whatnot. Take away 4 more hours. You still have 10 hours left, right? Family time, few more hours. What, 2 hours, 3 hours? You still have 7 hours. So if you approach it that way, you'll see that 2 hours easily. If I just take an average student who's learning from me, who is a professional and is learn and staying abroad, I see his schedule. Then 1 or 2 hours every day is possible. I don't think that's an impossibility. But anyway, I mean, no pressures. I don't want to pressurize anybody. But I'm just, I'm just saying,
Got the message, Guruji.
I'm just saying that I'm just saying that it's a possibility. It's not an impossibility. So uh, we are trying to enhance our lives experientially. So if you look at it that way, you're bound to going to you're definitely going to make the time. You know, as all great sadhaks, great gurus always tell their students, sleep less. A human being anyway sleeps half his life. On top of that, if you want to sleep more, then you're going to just, you know, spend time in life mostly sleeping. So there's no
Hmm.
harm in sleeping a little less. Intensify your sadhana in such a way that you do other things, maybe internal processes, physical processes to keep make your body and mind in such a way that you can make do with less sleep. It's possible to do that. So these are all
Hmm.
allied techniques that go along with the practice of hard riyaz. Yeah, it physically tires you, it may mentally tire you, but you can do other things to make yourself more resilient, tougher from inside, so that you can take on this process. So this is for people who really want to seriously pursue it or intensify it, right? So I would say, what was the second part of your question?
The second part was if a student working a full-time job can become uh, advanced, can start playing at an advanced level,
Yeah, yeah.
can get to that.
I have several students who have been learning with me now for 15, 16 years. They are performing at a very advanced level. So I have seen it in, I mean, I never, you said what expectations do I have? I have only one
Hmm.
expectation, that he has dedication. That's all. If dedication is there, he
Hmm.
is going to give time. If dedication is there, he will practice. If dedication is there, he will achieve the short goals, short term goals. He will then go for the bigger goals, targets. So, surrender and dedication to the arts. So, I have a very dear friend of mine, Jerry Fields, who's with us today. He's joined us from Atlanta, and thanks Jerry for joining us.
Mm.
You know, a big hello to you, and I hope you're doing well. You know, I've spent time with Jerry in his house. He's a fantastic musician, a fabulous drummer, percussionist, and we've spoken about this topic of you know riyaz, sadhana, and he meditates every day. You know, every single day in the morning he meditates. So these are processes that help you in making you in such a way from inside that you can take on. Because let me tell you, anyone who's getting inspired to get into this riyaz mode, it's not easy. It's a very hard physical process. I have done it. I have been put through it by Abbaji, and I've just for the benefit of students. It needs to be gradually increased. You don't just tomorrow you say you want to run a marathon, you can't do it. So you have to
Mm.
start first. You should be able to run 1 mile, right? At least. So you gradually
Of
ease
course.
yourself into that process. So Riyaz is also similar. Your mind, your body, your tenacity has to be built up over a period of time. So yeah, I mean, if that's done, surrender and dedication, that takes the student a very long way. And I've seen that in my students who live abroad. Uh, God give them, a lot of blessings, and that they should do well in the future. They are doing well. They are playing very well. They have understood the subject. They understand Vistar, and I mean that gives me immense happiness. That that if they have been able to achieve it, I'm sure hundreds of others can achieve it.
Thank you, Guruji. That absolutely seeing all of my Guru Bhais also abroad, seeing how much they have achieved is a great source of inspiration for me. I'm sure for others. And
How much time do we
I know
have?
you're running short on time, Guruji.
How much time do we
I
have?
think just a couple more minutes,
Oh,
just a couple minutes left.
okay.
Um, so I mean, I know things are opening up. Your schedule is starting to get busy. There's concerts coming up, and probably um, I only got through maybe half of my questions, and I'm sure there's many. I apologize to all of the attendees whose questions I wasn't able to get to. I highly recommend everyone. Many of these subjects, Padhant, Riyaz,
Padant, okay.
um,
Padant is my
Le,
favorite subject because I love doing Padant, and I love making all my
G, G, G.
students abroad also do Padant because they struggle with pronunciation. So Padant is very important. If you can't speak the language, you can't express. If you can't speak the language, you can't express. If you can't express, whatever you play is going to sound very mechanical or dry. It's not going to have that expression. It's not going to be meaningful. So, just in a
Mm,
nutshell, because we are running short of time, we this is an oral tradition. This has come from generation to generation by speaking this language and saying the compositions. The next generation has learnt it that way. So, a lot of stress on Padan should be given because that's how you will understand the gist of the poetry, of the chands inside whatever you're learning.
G, G. And to improve our control over laya as well, right?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Padhant.
Tal Kriya, with Tal Kriya of the Tal, with Tali first, and then once you're comfortable with the Tal Kriya, you should be able to recite. Because you're looking at the composition, the beauty of the composition inside the time cycle. That's how it should be.
Ji, bilkul, bilkul. Yeah, yeah. So many of these subjects I know are explored in the master classes that you host. So if there's any questions people have not had the chance to have asked today, I highly recommend everyone join those. You can also subscribe to the channel and see further events that are coming on, and there's always content being posted. So everyone, request from my end, please like, subscribe, and share. And so anything that we can look forward to, Guruji? What's your schedule look like in terms
Uh,
of concerts?
yeah, some concerts are coming up. I'm playing tomorrow and day after in Delhi, and then I'm playing for Sadguru Jagjit Singh Ji, uh, the Sadguru of the Namdhari Sampradaya at Shri Bhaini Sahib. I'm playing there on Monday, the 22nd. Uh, and then a few more concerts coming up. Gradually, things are have begun to happen. So, but yeah, I mean, we'll get together again. Sorry, because of lack of time, I haven't been able to address so many questions that I see here on the chat. But when I see the chat, then I get distracted and I don't listen to your question properly. So, uh, but yeah, I will come back. I will join. We'll do the YouTube live again, and I hope everyone joins and we continue this dialogue. And yeah, all the best to everyone. Be safe, keep well, and I'll see you soon.
Thank
Okay.
you very much.
Somebody wants
Thank you
me
very
to
much, Guruji.
padant. Somebody wants me to do padant, small padant. I'll end with a
That'd
padant.
be a wonderful way to end. Yes.
So, then nana, then na, then na, da, then nana, then na. Dhagrid ding na tergid tergid takid ta katakid ta tergid tergid takid ta dighen ta dha dhagrid ding na tergid tergid takid ta katakid ta tergid tergid takid ta dighen ta dha dhagrid ding na tergid tergid takid ta katakid ta tergid tergid takid ta dighen ta dha.
Kya baat hai, Guruji.
See
Thank
you
you.
soon.
Thank you so much for all of it.
My pleasure. Thanks for joining and thanks for making the time for this session.
Of course.